Samsel from IH Reggio Calabria. She's the SEN coordinator, and she's going to be talking about dyslexia, which I think is a subject that I know, for one, that I always feel that I don't know enough about. And whenever you encounter students that have dyslexia, I always think, I should know more about this. So I'm really looking forward to your talk, Maria. Off you go.
Oh, thank you very much, Anna. Yeah, so my name is Maria. I work in IH British School in Reggio Calabria in the south of Italy, and I am SEN coordinator here as well as YL teacher. Before I started teaching English, I studied SEN and inclusive education in London. So bringing all that experience into the English learning classroom is a new thing for me, but I think it's quite important to talk about the wider scale. So today we will look at these points. I'll tell you very briefly why I chose this topic, what is dyslexia, what it may look like in your classroom, what inclusive practices you can put in place and what you are probably already putting in place, and what is the role of us as teachers in all this. So why this? Dyslexia International identified key constraints that prevent education systems from effectively addressing dyslexia. One of them is limited teacher training pre and in service. So I don't know about you, but during my CELTA, there wasn't really any time to discuss learning differences and things like that. So trying to do my bit and trying to put it out on a wider scale for people to be a bit more aware of dyslexia and having more knowledge about it. They also pointed out lack of awareness of simple and cost-effective solutions. Sometimes it feels like we have to do some grand schemes and invest a lot of money in different programs, but actually there's a lot of things that we can do in the classroom that can help us and our students to learn how to read and write and to effectively learn English. So what is dyslexia? First of all, I want to say that it's not all bad. Our students might have problems with reading and writing and other activities and tasks, but they can be very observant. In general, they're quite good problem solvers. They think more in pictures rather than words, and they tend to be quite creative. Dyslexia is a learning difference. It affects the learning processes in reading and or writing and or spelling. It also affects memory and organization, time management. It can cause poor phonological awareness. So our students might struggle with differentiating between words bat, ban, and bag, either in productive or receptive skills. And it's important to mention that it is a spectrum. Some students might have mild dyslexia or more severe that really impacts on how they read and write and how they learn. So in the chat, can you just write a number? What percentage of the population do you think is estimated to have a form of reading and writing learning difference? What do you think would be the number? Okay, so we've got 23, 33, 10%, 70%. Okay, so from the research, according to Dyslexia International, the percentage is actually between 5 and 10%. That student can have dyslexia. However, that's also a spectrum. So the more severely impacted students would be obviously in the minority in that percentage. But there are some other research that suggests the number might be much higher, up to 20%. So the likelihood, if you're teaching, let's say 100 students across your classes, 1 in 5 will probably have some kind of reading and writing difficulties. It may not be dyslexia certified or diagnosed, but they might struggle to read and write. And how they learn, it's different. Dyslexia appears in every single language that's been researched, but its recognition varies across the world. And most research is focused on the English-speaking population. And there is a reason for that. English is actually a very difficult language to learn when it comes to reading and writing and spelling. One of the reasons for that is a characteristic of English, which is, can you decode what it might be? It's a feature of English language that is tricky. There we go. It's depth, yeah? Or orthographic depth? It's orthographic depth. Yay, there we go. The fact that we can write it this way in English, in theory, it's fascinating from my perspective, but from our students' perspective, imagine how many different phonemes we can use to represent our letters and our graphemes. So it's tricky and it's not easy, especially for those with phonological processing difficulties when they hear a sound and they try to picture what it looks like on paper. We have so many different ways that we can do this in English. In the same manner, I could have also written it like this, or like in source, or like in shore. So our students really struggle with that. So to give you a little bit more information, orthographic depth refers to the degree to which a written language deviates from simple one-to-one letter phoneme correspondence. English is particularly deep language in comparison to other, on this graph I have more European languages. So for example, in Italian and Spanish, or even Greek, although even the alphabet might be different, the correspondence between the symbol for the sound and the sound itself is pretty straightforward. It's simpler than in English. Orthographic depth correlates with incidence of dyslexia and with the word and non-word reading in typically developing children. So even students who don't have any problems with reading and writing when it comes to learning differences or dyslexia, they might still struggle to memorize all the different ways how we can write things because the system is quite complicated. And imagine if your student's L1 is more orthographically shallow than English, the differences in learning might present more obviously when starting to learn English. So in the L1 classroom, in the normal schools, they might not struggle as much. And they come to us, especially in primary settings, and they might find thinking a little bit more differently, and they might struggle with different things. So that's what it brings me to the uniqueness of our classrooms. So we teach all 4 skills in our classes, and all of them are very important. But with the complexity of English language and how that may affect on our students, we've got this unique opportunity to actually notice certain things that other teachers or parents might not be able to. So what dyslexia in the classroom actually looks like. You might see some scribbling and quite poorly coordinated handwriting. Your students might be quite reluctant to read for pleasure or read at all. They heavily rely on autocorrect, so you will see for and from, things like that, especially when you teach online, when students type, they might rely on autocorrect. You can see mirrored or transposed letters, a lot of scribbles and crossing things out. They will struggle with spelling, and they will over and over go back into reassuring themselves how to spell certain words, even if they see them all the time. You will see a lot of rubbing out on their exam papers. And the likelihood is that they have not read the latest news or the latest book. It's obviously different for every single student, but these are some of the signs that you might notice. Other things that I think are important to bear in mind is the discrepancy between language skills. So some of your students might excel in listening and speaking, and their oral skills might actually be very well developed, but their reading and writing is really poor. So looking at the difference between those skills and the percentage and scores can be a warning sign. They probably would be reluctant or frustrated when reading. They might avoid or rush writing and reading tasks, consistently transpose or mirror or miss out letters in everyday words. They might skip lines in text when reading, might have troubles telling from left from right, have poor organization as well. For example, one of my students consistently notes down the wrong pages to do for homework. And it's not like they don't want to do it, they just really think that's what was said, but they just keep getting it wrong. They may struggle following on oral instructions, and in general, they're quite slower at reading. So when it comes to reading speed, what do you think is the average reading speed in your L1? Can you write in the chat? How many words per minute do you think it might be? Okay, we have 60, 100, 50. Okay. Okay, so I'll try to share with you my screen from the browser. Bear with me. Okay. Oh, sorry. There we go. Can you see it okay? Can someone give me a thumbs up? Lovely, thank you. Okay, so the answer to the question is actually in this text. What I would like you to focus on is the middle of the word that you can see. At the moment, the word is the. Just focus on the middle of the screen and try to find the answer. Okay, so what is the average reading speed? It is 200, thank you. It's 200 words per minute. It was tiring, wasn't it, to focus on the words as they were flickering rather. And what is the number for students with dyslexia? Anybody remember that? 50 to 150, exactly. And that's in the L1. So for L2 or learning English, when they learn English and when they try to read, that number goes way down. I will share all the links to the tools that I've used here at the end of the presentation as well, but just so you know, this tool is called Spreeder, is a web-based app. So as much as you can change the background of the text and you can change the size of the text and as well as the chunks of how many words at the time show up on the screen, but you cannot change the font itself, which brings me to my next point. Do you know your fonts? There are many fonts that we can choose from when we prepare handouts on PowerPoints. And my question for you is, which one of these 3 fonts is most dyslexia friendly? And can you name these fonts? So first, which one do you think is the most dyslexia friendly? 1, 2, or 3? Okay, 3, 3, 3. I think I've given it away a little bit by using that font quite a bit. Okay, and can you name any of the fonts? I think we had first person saying, yeah, lovely. Yeah, exactly. So number 1 is Arial, quite a standard font. Number 2, Times New Roman, indeed. And number 3 is the font that I tend to use for my presentations and is actually Open Dyslexic Font. It's a free resource that you can download onto your computer, and you can use it in all the possible apps in Word and in PowerPoint. And I will, again, put the link at the end of the presentation and in the chat box. One of the reasons why this font has been especially designed for students with dyslexia is because, I don't know if you can notice the weighting of the actual letters. They're a little bit heavier. They're a bit thicker at the bottom, which means that the line that the actual text is on, it sits a little bit more on the actual line, which prevents jumping of the letters. Also, the letters are a little bit slanted, so it's not just straight lines and O's. And the gaps between the letters themselves and between the words are a little bit bigger compared to other fonts. Arial is not a bad font. It is very easily accessible as well. Out of these three, I would say Times New Roman is the least friendly, just because all the twirly bits. But as long as you make the text a little bit wider, it's a little bit easier for students to read. So when it comes to writing, I think I do have time. I have a writing activity for you. So if you can just take a pen and paper, if you have it, and you can give me a thumbs up maybe in the presentations. Lovely, thank you, thank you, thank you. So just a bit of pen and paper. You will need to listen and write. It will be only one sentence, but I have some instructions for you to follow while you do so. So first, I would like you to stand up, and I hope you will play along with it with me. So you have to stand up. I would like you to use your non-dominant hand. And I would like you to write the sentence, but I want you to substitute every A with a plus sign, every E with an equal sign, every I with a question mark, and every O with a minus sign. Okay, let's try.
Can you repeat that for a second?
I can. That's the tricky part. You're supposed to remember. Every A is a plus sign. Every E is an equal sign. Every I is a question mark. And every O is a minus. Okay, let's give it a go. Non-dominant hands standing up.
The cat is on the table.
Okay, I can see some good scribbling. If you finished, you're more than welcome to sit down. Okay. What you have written down should look something like this. Did you get it right? Nice. It's a little bit tricky. So coming back to my points, for our students with dyslexia or with writing difficulties and reading difficulties, it can be really tricky. Like, they can hear the sound, but they don't remember what the letter looks like. They don't know the symbol. They cannot retrieve that information as easily. It took us longer. It was probably a bit more frustrating and uncomfortable. And I did not put any instructions on the board. So it was very much oral instructions. You had to remember how you needed to change it. And it was not easy. Thank you, exactly. It was difficult. So think about your students in the classroom when we do dictations. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do dictations. I'm just saying, I just want you to put you in the shoes of some of your students and how that might make you feel. So what we can do about writing, a lot of those things we do already. Color coding, word banks, we can use a little bit more software, for example, speech to text, and trying to train our students or maybe introduce those tools to our students. The tool that I used a moment ago, it was called Vocaroo. Again, I'll put the link at the end of the presentation. Students can go on the website, just click record, and they can send you a link with their speaking. And that's it. They don't have to sign up. They don't have to do anything else. So there's quite a lot of ways of introducing different ways of assessment as well. Using comics, overlearning chunks of language, mind maps, such as this one from MindMap, mind mapping softwares, sentence starters, WH question drills, visual prompts, bullet points. I'm sure most of us do all those things already in our classrooms, especially in our YL classrooms. So this is something for you to remember, that our students might find it really difficult to do simple tasks like writing a simple sentence. And also, we can always do it a little bit better. We can arrange things a little bit better so they're easier to see for our students, so that things are easier to copy. Color coding can make a big difference in our classrooms, whether it's on posters or on a PowerPoint or on the handouts. If everything is clearly labeled and laid out, huge difference. So let's get into our inclusive practices. Again, a lot of those things you're probably doing already. For example, lots of TPR, lots of physical response. Kinesthetic learning can help our students very much, and rehearsing and drilling and repeating different songs or stories or anything like that can be very helpful for them, for their memory to remember what they need to write or what they are reading. We already focus on communication rather than just copying from the board. So I think our classrooms are already quite well adjusted. Some of us have smaller classrooms, so smaller class teaching is also beneficial for our students because we can get to know them a little bit more, and we can get to know their strengths and weaknesses. And we might be able to utilize them for their benefit. Multisensory and interactive approaches are part of inclusive practice, as well as lockstepping tasks and instructions with visual cues. Brain breaks are also very important. Just simple standing up, sitting down, any kind of games and revision breaks. And again, utilizing strengths. For example, could you set up a speaking or a listening homework rather than only asking students to produce in writing or a gap fill or anything like that? Being a bit more creative with using different skills and showing students that they are not failing at reading and writing. They're just reading and writing differently, but they have different strengths. Can you make dyslexia-friendly PowerPoints, worksheets, or handouts a little bit easier, like this? Pastel background can help students, again, letters not to jump around too much because everything is a little more faded together. Explicitly teaching language features and phonics, very important. I think most of YL course books have parts that focus on phonics and different graphemes and different representations of sounds. When I started teaching, I thought I'm just going to skip some of that because it didn't seem as important as some of the grammar points and some of the readings or vocabulary, but actually teaching students how to decode words is very crucial, especially if they're L1, if the rules in the L1 are completely different to the ones in English. Sequencing drills, so focusing on drilling and drilling and drilling and repetition. Your alphabets, days of the week, months of the year. Using any memory games that you can. So the working, so they can strengthen their working memory. And lots of encouragement through positive feedback. For example, could you use the green pen to correct the homework so it doesn't feel like they're failing all the time with their writing? Let's bring it all together because I think I have only 5 minutes left. Your role in all this. What word do you think it is? I've got riddles for you. Can you decode my word? What could it be? The bus minus B plus E. There we go, it is used, thank you. You can use a variety of inclusive learning tools that benefit all the students. So they don't have to be singled out. We can put all those things into practice and all students could possibly benefit. Another word, can you decode this one for me? Notice, very nice. You can notice patterns in errors in spelling, writing, and reading, and make a note of it. Try to see exactly where they're making mistakes. Are they consistently making the same mistakes over and over and over again, no matter how many different ways you're trying to teach them? Make a note of that. One more. This one is a bit longer. Nice. Monitor, exactly. Monitor discrepancies between the core skills, trying to see the difference. If your students score very highly on speaking or listening, I had one of the students not long ago during one of our tests, we had 80-90% on listening and speaking, and 20% of reading and writing. That's a big gap. This is not something that they just didn't want to write, they were lazy or anything like that. There might be something going on there. And that's something that's worth bearing in mind in order to, our last one, what is the word? Share, exactly. You can use and notice and monitor in order to share the details with students' network. So whether it's the parents, the school teachers, anybody else around the students that might want this information. And I believe we are really all in the very unique opportunity. We have very unique opportunity, kind of a superpower, in my opinion, to be able to notice different things that other people might just not be able to do. And that's it, and thank you. And I've got my tools. You can either screenshot it now or I can put it in the chat box in a moment, but these are the tools that I've used. And just I think I have 2 minutes. Dyslexia in ELT, there are a couple of very good websites if you are interested in this, as well as free courses. Open University and Coursera do free courses for supporting understanding dyslexia and supporting children with difficulties in reading and writing. And a bit more specific to us, dyslexia and foreign language teaching Future Learn course starts in April next year. It is all free. So if you are interested in the topic, you're more than welcome to do this. And a few references. And that's it.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And with all those links and all those materials are fantastic. Thank you.